I think it is considered domestic terrorism, considering that it's like within the country, and it's targeting democracy as a whole, and like what they did is not really accepted by society. Like I've talked to a lot of people, and they said that storming on Capitol Hill was not something that's acceptable. It was like a threat to democracy, and more than that, 5 people died. The fact that 5 people died is insane, and it's something that terrorists will do. Go in there and try to kill people, and that was essentially done. And so I think that it would be considered domestic terrorism. And in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, I wouldn't compare it to the Black Lives Matter movement, in the sense like that the Black Lives Matter movement was a little, I would say, more peaceful than like the storming on Capitol Hill, and like the Black Lives Matter movement was not like labeled as terrorist, and it had a purpose, that a lot of people would like support it. Um, so I don't think that it would be considered the domestic terrorism as compared to the Black Lives Matter movement, but it is domestic terrorism what happened on last Wednesday.
Oh, you can go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, so I agree with Milena. Because it was an attack to democracy, and their intentions were not peaceful at all, which is like the main difference between Black Lives Matter protest and what we saw on Wednesday. Their intentions were not to be talking about their opinion, even though I don't agree with it. But they were not just talking about it; they wanted to enter well, they did, and they started vandalizing it, and they didn't care who was there, what they were going to do. They just wanted to vandalize it, and of course people died due to that, due to that action. And I feel that if this situation happened, for example, in any country, Latin America or maybe Muslim countries, the United States will have like a plan right now to intervene in those countries due to, because it's an attack to democracy. But here we see it happen, and it was just, oh, it's a protest. So we can see that lack of balance in this country within other countries.
And that's a really good point. So if you could transition that into the second portion of actions and consequences. Once again, I'm going to put the questions in the chat. You guys can pick what questions you'd prefer to answer. I'll read it out loud again just in case. What actions would you like to see taken in response to last week's events? Donald Trump
barely won. Like he should have, like, I think we can agree that a sensible president should win with a much higher margin than he did. And secondly, because I'm not exactly sure like 100% of what impeachment entails, but I know that like if Trump gets impeached, he'll lose the presidential pension that they get after they get out of office. Not that he needs it, but he's going to lose that. He's going to lose his not social security, his private security that follows all former presidents around. He's going to lose, well, he's going to lose his respect, and he won't be able to run again. So because of all
but I think it's removed. Like if Congress finds him
if the Senate convicts him, I think that happens because he was impeached last January. The House impeached him last January, so he is impeached.
They have to follow
second
through.
Impeachment.
Yeah, like if the Senate like convicts him on it, he would lose all of his like presidential
like protections after his actual after his actual like, I don't want to say ruling, but his years as president. And also I don't think he just needs to be impeached. I think there actually has to be some legal prosecution done on him. Like I'm talking actual jail time, just because the violence that he incited has led to literal deaths. Like he already got away with hundreds of thousands of deaths because of coronavirus that we know he could have prevented. So I think like not only that, but DAs have to go forward with prosecuting Trump for the violence that he incited, because impeachment, sure, that's one thing, but it's not the end of your world. But I think for what he's done to our nation and like the state our nation is in, he needs to face some actual consequences.
Yeah, I don't think it should be just him. I think it should be everyone that takes that was involved in causing this, because his son was also involved in bringing up the protesters. And I mean, I don't know if they are called protesters at this point, the rioters, and caused 5 deaths, I believe. And literally destroyed the Capitol. Like, there should be more people to be accounted for what they are done. So not just Trump being impeached, but everyone who was involved in causing this or in any way should be serving some jail time, or like at least investigation.
I also think I keep seeing people, and I saw it a lot last week, about like people talking about like the precedent, not like the precedent that was kind of set when Nixon resigned, and then I think it was it Ford who pardoned him after he was out of office. The president that it was after him, I don't want to like say who it was because I might get it, probably going to get it wrong, pardoned him. And I've seen a lot of people, especially in my classes, talking about how like that's the way that you should do it to like heal the country and move forward. But I think that it's a different like a different thing. Like I don't think they're comparable offenses, because I think that obviously obviously like we can all look back and be like and everyone even at the time was like, obviously what Nixon did was completely wrong. But I think that for that to be fully implanted in everyone's minds, there has to be clear consequences for the people in power and also for the people who were at the Capitol, like trying to break into the Capitol. Like there has to be prosecution for those people, because even if he is prosecuted, if there isn't consequences for those people who were actually on the ground and who are actually there, it doesn't matter if he's prosecuted or not. They're still gonna like, that's not really gonna stop those people, because I've seen a bunch of people online who were Trump supporters who are now like upset with him for conceding. It was really weird, but unless like the people who were actually at the Capitol get consequences, I think that it's not gonna like do anything.
I also like to mention the differences between what Nixon did and what Trump did. Like Nixon lied to the American public about a war. Trump incited domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
And he also spent the past 4 years inciting domestic terrorists and emboldening them. So I think the difference in that is so stark and it's so bold that you should look at it face value and say this man has been a danger to our society.
And Watergate is so much different than, because first of all, Watergate was like caught very like early into is so much different than calling people to the Capitol of the United States and saying like, come here to protest the certification.
And I think it's kind of ridiculous that it took so long for this to happen, considering like it's literally almost every other post or every post of his that Twitter had to fact check and like say like, oh, this isn't true, like here, look at these election results over here. And it's just ridiculous that it had to come, that we'd have to wait this long for action to actually be taken when they know that he's making ridiculous comments and untrue statements that literally, like what you were saying, Kat, literally incite violence.
Honestly, I'm not, even though I of course want him to be impeached because it's just, this is getting way out of hand. I need to like, do you guys know of like any specific thing he did that can be claimed as unconstitutional enough for him to be impeached? Because I know I forgot who, I think someone actually did like call for his impeachment and people are like signing for it, like a politician. But I don't know the exact like legal thing that he did that was considered unconstitutional enough for him to be actively impeached.
I think that's a really good question. And also wanted to add on, I think that there's people like people saying like, what's the whole point to impeach him? He's like, he's not going to be president no more in a few more weeks. Well, it's like 2 weeks or next week. But I think that once they impeach him, he will no longer be able to be president again, which I think would be good to impeach him, because 4 years has been enough, and then including this, yeah, no, it's just way too much. Especially, I also to go back to the other question about like the social media. I think that social media should have what was it again? Like, how do you say it? Like, shut down his accounts because he was just giving false information, and it just went to yeah, there you go, suspended his accounts. Okay, wait, let me just restart. I think I agree with all of you. Like, they should have definitely suspended his account a long time ago, because he has been giving false information, and it's just, I don't understand why it had to come to this extent, as Kat has said and everyone else has said. So I just totally agree with everyone.
Yeah, to add on to what everyone said so far, I agree with everything that's being said, of course. And there's some people saying that, like, Twitter, they're complaining that he was banned off of Twitter, but they are a private major corporation, so it's not limiting freedom of speech or anything like that, like going against any constitutional amendments. And also with the impeachment, not only can he not run for president again, so we won't have to worry about that in 2025, but there's other added benefits that come with being a retired president, like a security detail for life secret service security detail. There's a pension of like 120K a year, something like that, like every that also comes with it. So he won't get any of those benefits. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to add on to
So how do we feel about like Trump's Twitter and Facebook accounts being banned? Should we feel like the 25th Amendment be evoked? And how do we feel about all that?
I mean, like, I get why people want the 25th Amendment to be like done, but I don't really see what difference it makes. He only has 2 weeks left. I see where people are coming from, where he needs to be out of office. But like, if anyone wants to respond to that, like to tell me why it would be a really big thing to get him out of office, that'd be great.
If he was impeached again, he wouldn't be able to run in the next election, which is a big deal because, he said he's planning on running.
Oh, then yeah, we need to do that. He should not be able to run again.
Yeah.
He loses a lot of money too. Like, they get like lifetime of money or like some pensions. I don't know. He just doesn't get, he doesn't need it.
He loses his Secret Service too.
Wait, well, how long would it take to impeach him though? Like, could it even be done in 2 weeks?
I think it could, because now we have Senate control. Democrats have Senate control, so that's like another topic that we can discuss about, is the Georgia runoff election. But back to the impeachment, like, we were able to confirm a justice in less than a week. So I could see it happening.
On the basis of the 25th Amendment, I actually think that we should wait until he's out of office and then press charges afterwards. I think that's a smart way to go. I'm not sure that invoking the 25th would like be enough, almost, like, just to make sure like you clear all bases and that his power is restricted not only in office but like wherever he goes. Because you don't want the risk of him using other means to manipulate our country. So that's just my opinion.
I agree. I feel like we should do press charges along with invoking the 25th. But as far as the social media goes, this man has viewed a lot of hate speeches, and I was split between it, because at first I was like, oh my goodness, finally we don't have to hear no more of this. But then I saw a post and it did make a lot of sense. It said, if at the end of the day, we do have freedom of speech. And, you know, even though if like all of the country, like everybody in the country, except for like one person thought that, you know, everything that he was putting was a hate speech, it still took away from his like his right of freedom of speech. And it really just like said like anybody, that right can now be like taken away from anyone, like even if we don't agree with it. Cause like simply it could have just been like, oh, you know, they put that out there, nobody really like listens to it, and it's just like kind of ignored. It doesn't really, we don't really feed into that platform. But instead it was just like we just took the entire platform away. And it's like when this country decides that something can be a hate speech, like even if we like if someone doesn't agree with it, they can simply just take it away. And so it did say a certain thing about like our freedom as citizens, but at the same time, what he was promoting wasn't really benefiting the country. So I was split between that.
I kind of wonder what's gonna just happen to all his like supporters, because obviously they're gonna still be here, but like are they still gonna cause like chaos and everything? And I know it's not gonna be smooth like the first few days, but who knows what's gonna, because they're too hardcore to just let go of it, and it's just bad.
So I'm gonna put some rundown of what actually happened during the Georgia runoff election, or why it was so significant.
Well, it was kind of the tiebreaker in the Congress between the Republicans and the Democrats. So they both put in a lot of money in the election. And then I guess it paid off for the Democrats because now it's 50-50, but then the vice president can break the tie and she's the Democrat. So I think it's a big win for the Democrats, but it was definitely overshadowed by the Capitol.
4 minutes left. Okay. Really good point. Why specifically though was Georgia such a, like, everyone was so worried about Georgia?
Isn't it like a swing state, I think?
It's typically a red state, so that's why it was so shocking when both when the candidates for senators who won were both Democrats. That's why that's so record breaking, because not record breaking, but like historical, because I don't think they've had two Democrat representatives for Senate in a very, very long time.
Yes, it was indeed historical. And can someone tell me what was so different about the voter turnout this time? And who or what was this change initiated by?
Well, wasn't it that all the typical like Republican outholds, like the suburbs, rural areas, and particularly white voters, whether that be college or non-college educated, they all voted a lot more for Democrats and Republicans this cycle.
That's one of, yes, that's definitely one of the points that basically a lot of people were not expecting to happen. What was something else that also happened during this election?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read somewhere about how more younger people went out to vote, I think. I don't know if I'm correct though.
Yes, there was a huge youth voter turnout, and I think that really touches back on what YVote is doing here in New York. There is also, Christopher, sorry, is your hand raised or is that from before?
That's from before, sorry.
But there was also a huge amount of BIPOC individuals going out to vote, specifically Black women. They basically overturned a lot of the polls, and a lot of people are putting that on the effect that Stacey Abrams had on Georgia. And I wanted to ask you guys, what does that really mean for representational politics? Like, what is the impact of having someone represent individuals? Does that empower others, etc.? We're gonna go to Medina, and then Christopher, I don't know if your box is highlighted because you want to say something or if it just is, but we'll go to Medina first.
Yeah, I would say like it's a very good thing because like usually the problem in politics is that not everyone's being represented, and especially like for this election since there was such a greater turnout for not just like the youth but also like people of color, so like they're actually being heard for once. And I think like this would help pave a way for like more states and like more representatives of those in diverse backgrounds to be elected, and that like more and also people from those backgrounds to have a voice and have a platform to choose the people that really speaks out to them. So yeah.
Most definitely. Um, did before we go on, did anyone else want to say something on this? Christopher, you had your box highlighted, but I don't know if that was a Zoom error or just anything. Do we have any other comments on the Georgia elections? Okay, I'm assuming not. Okay. And also, before we finish, or I guess end this conversation, do we have any other questions or concerns about what's going to happen in a post-coup world? Or last minute thoughts on what we think about it?
What was the question? Sorry.
I said, do we have any thoughts or concerns on what's going to happen in a post-coup world?
Well, I just think it's going to be interesting to see what the Democrats do in response. I mean, I know that they've already asked Pence about the 25th Amendment, and it's like I'm pretty sure he's not going to do anything about it, but it's just interesting that that's being mentioned already.
And Ilhan Omar, by the way, has already drawn up the papers. We have 9 seconds left, so we're going to have to end this rather abrupt.
Does anyone feel we could have gone for a couple more days in these conversations? Chris-Anne, bring us back together.
Okay, and just before I start, Nushat, would you like to do like 5 minutes if I do 5 minutes for this section? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Very equitable.
Okay, so I probably won't take 5 minutes if I'm gonna be honest. But basically, we just had a great discussion. I don't know about your group, but my group, we were on fire. We had a great discussion about the state of our nation and everything that's been going on and what does that mean in terms of YVote. In my group, we talked a lot about polarization, and I feel like that's an important point to address. Like, oftentimes in politics, we're so used to being considered Democrat or Republican, and we're so used to all of our beliefs and values aligning with that one party, even if we don't identify with everything of that one party. But our work here at YVote is to embrace cross partisanship, and I feel like that's something that we should take into account more often. Like, we might be Democrat on paper, but we don't have to align with that party for everything that they do. In politics, nothing is ever perfect. And I just want to reiterate that simply because it's politics. People try to achieve the status quo. We oftentimes will not get what we want. And when we have these conversations about politics, we need to be aware of the fact that we aren't speaking on our political alignment, but we do want to see change across the board, right? And just to be clear, like, we all know that Biden is going to be our next president. We all probably have fears about what's going to happen on inauguration day. But I just want to make it clear that Biden himself, I think Kelly was the one in my group that brought this up. Actually, credits to Kelly, but Biden is a moderate. And what does that mean for the Democratic Party, right? So oftentimes we think that just because we have the Democratic Party, it's going to be like the most liberal presidency that we see, but we need to continue the work of holding these people accountable and pushing them to achieve the things that we want to achieve. Because if we sit here and we're just like, it's Democrats, we're going to be okay. We have to realize that at the end of the day, these are politicians. And at the end of the day, this is a capitalist country. We can't exclude economic thought from anything. And oftentimes we settle for less as a country. And what can we do to not sell anymore? And yeah, those are just some points that I wanted to raise. And Nusha, you can do the next section. Told y'all it wasn't going to take 5 minutes.
You didn't. By the way, that was great. Like, that's honestly, those points are really, really, really important things that we have to keep looking into as YVote. So I'm just going to ask you guys, what did you guys get from your groups, and what would you like to share out to the main group?
In my group, we talked a lot about how what happened was kind of in the cards, but also it was surprising in its own way, but it was still kind of like prevalent in the past 4 years and how like the rhetoric that's been coming out of Donald Trump's mouth for the past 4 years. But we also talked about how these past 4 years it's kind of been showing that this country is moving towards more of a fascism and more fascism in a way. We also spoke about how Trump has been emboldening and like enlightening racists into believing that it's okay to be racist, or that their racism doesn't excludes them, that the First Amendment excludes their racism from being targeted against from private companies, even though it doesn't. So yeah.
That's sorry. Did someone say
Oh, go
something?
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Alex, that's a really good point. And one other thing that I wanted to bring up is this fascism really draws back to what happened in the 1940s, Nazi Germany. One of my professors did bring up the fact that there was a lot of anti-Semitic rhetoric being thrown out in the protest, and you had individuals wearing shirts that said Camp Auschwitz. I just thought that was a point to bring up. Kanisha.
Yeah, so I was also in Alex's group, and I guess we were almost centering around the fact that this is like a culmination of everything Trump has done over the last 4 years. Like before he was here, we were already a pretty divided country, but after he stepped into office, not only are we like, it feels like so many things were undone. Like now we're more polarized than ever, you could argue. And we could also argue that the fact that he's been planting these seeds of misinformation, and this misinformation isn't like harmless. It is going, like we've already seen that the misinformation that he spreads, like with the coronavirus, has led to lives being lost. So just the kind of guess, like, you know, compounding of things that he's done over the last 4 years just really enabled all of these people to storm the Capitol and literally dismantle our democracy. And that's the thing that I don't think people are recognizing about this. I think a lot of people look at the news and, you know, for better or for worse, well, usually for worse, we kind of write it off like it's going to be fixed. We know it's going to be fixed. Like the authorities will take care of it, XYZ, something's going to happen. This is just a phase. But the real scary thing about this, it is a legitimate threat to our democracy. Like this isn't something we should take lightly, even though I think most people right now aren't, you know, giving it a second look.
That's a really good point. And I guess does anyone else want to share what they were thinking?
Right, I'll go quick. From all of this, the one clear thing that we all can agree is that they committed crimes. And with that being said, I do believe that because of these crimes, they should be held, but in the highest degree accountable for them with, you know, punishment. And it goes back to deterrence, because I feel like if the punishment doesn't, you know, feel like it's going to be harsh enough, then it's going to make them believe that they can do worse.
Going back to this idea of make them believe that they can do worse and that this is a legitimate threat to democracy that Kanisha brought up, I'm wondering, had any of you talked about these specific points in your group as well?
Oh my.
Real quick, we also said that if this was a Black Lives Matter protest or like a pro-choice protest or any other type of protest with other types of people, this would not have happened. National Guard would have been deployed. They would have been shooting at them. They would have been arresting them in the masses like they did over the summer. It would not have gotten to this point. They would not have even been able to cross the barricade. They wouldn't have opened them. They wouldn't have let them in. They would have met them with the utmost force.
Might I mention as well that Trump basically delayed the deployment of the National Guard to DC, and Virginia had to use their National Guard and had to send theirs there first. Did anyone else want to share their thoughts on what they talked about in their groups?
I guess my group discussed about the importance of including bipartisan individuals in the cabinet and in the administration during Biden's presidency, because there's no real way to heal from such divide than to then to acknowledge what they want and give them enough that they'll be satisfied and enough that we will be satisfied to the point that we can flourish in the future. If not now, then hopefully in the near future. I think that it's something that Biden can do. He has the ability to do it, but he can't undermine its importance and think of it as just an idea more than the plan. Because honestly, I don't really see any other way to heal from a situation like Trump's presidency.
And on this idea of healing from this presidency, what do we think is going to happen in the next, I guess, 2-3 months or even year? This is a really broad question, so really you could answer with about anything. What do we think is going to happen in response to what happened on Wednesday? And what do you think is going to happen in response to maintaining our democracy?
I guess the one good thing about the internet and my generation on the internet is that we were able to find who these people are. There's a whole Instagram account where they're identifying them. There's a TikTok account. They're finding these people and they're bringing the information to the FBI and they're arresting them. They're on no-fly list. They're stuck in DC. They can't do anything. So I guess in the near future, I'm hoping that these people get the 10-year minimum or more, considering that what they did does have a 10-year minimum and Trump enacted that after the Black Lives Matter protest. Yeah, I hope that they get like enacted to the furthest extent of the law. I hope that they lose. I don't like hope that people lose their right to vote, but I hope they acknowledge that what they did damage our democracy and that they should not have part in a democracy when they inactively try to destroy it.
Yeah, I think some short-term effects are definitely going to be like heightened security. And someone in our group mentioned that like they feel that Inauguration Day shouldn't be such a public ceremony. And I agree. I think that's probably going to be one of the short-term effects. The inauguration is going to be much more closed off. And I think like some longer-term effects, honestly, I don't think there's going to be that many long-term effects of this just because of the whole nature of this attack. I guess because of it, honestly, like if we look at it on a national scale, there's a decent amount of supporters of what they're doing right now. And because of that divide, I actually don't think there's going to be like an insane change made when it comes to, a long-term like any long-term changes. And I guess like maybe prosecution wise, I do think like my hopes are that Trump will actually be impeached this time. And even though I think further disciplinary action has to be taken, like he actually has to be charged with crimes in any, in a federal court, to actually pay for his actions, because he's just gotten away with murder at this point. I don't think that's going to happen either. So
I would partially agree with you on that because I'm hopeful that in the new administration that we're moving into, they will take better steps to reprimand the people who do or commit these types of acts and to just prevent that type of ideology from spreading on such a national level. But so far, yeah, I would say for the past 4 years, actions like this have been supported by the federal government, and yeah, it's just bad. So
it is right now 5:45. You have all shared amazing outlooks on what happened on Wednesday, and I really thank you for participating in this conversation. To correct, like honestly, jazz hands and claps for you all, but also to correct information that is being put in the chat. YVote is a cross-partisan organization, but I must correct misinformation. The FBI has stated that Antifa had no part in what happened on Wednesday. So just to clarify that. Okay, and it is 5:46, so I'm going to hand it off to
Melody.
Yes.
Hello. Really great discussion, y'all. We knew that it was so much happened in the beginning of the year that we made 45 minutes of our time dedicated to talking about it. So we'll hope to keep the conversation going. Remember to always reach out to your peers here at YVote, even offline, if things come up and you just need somebody to discuss with. So keeping the ball rolling, I want to bring y'all back to the leadership matrix that we introduced. I believe the last session we introduced it.
Actually, Melody, just to the peer leaders, so it is new to the.
Oh yes, to the peer leaders. Yes, pregnancy brain is still like info. So yes, so our peer leaders got to see this and help us understand from their perspective how useful this may be. And so we are exposing everyone in our community to this matrix, and we are looking forward to using this in our work moving forward. So actually, can I have a facilitator screen share the matrix with the group? So we're actually going to implement new groups. These groups will be sort of like an accountability buddy pod, if you will. If y'all haven't heard of an accountability buddy, it's just some people when you hold yourself to some goals, you have somebody checking in with you and continue to cheer you on and making sure you meet those goals. So we're now applying that to the goals that we have. The work that we do at YVote. Given the feedback and our launch last month with the peer leaders, we made some changes. And so we broke the skills down into different levels. Level 1 and 2 are kind of like the basic levels of things that we're already doing individually and in our teams and action groups. So you'll see that they're beautifully color coded as well. So the yellow and the green are key skills that you are doing as an individual. You've been doing since you've joined YVote. You may even be doing it outside of YVote. And number 2 is really like group work, action group related work, and really taking action on the issues that you care about, whether it be voting or another issue that you're passionate about. And then we have more advanced levels, level 3 and 4, which are in the blue and the violet purplish, depending on what your eye can see. And those are really like the advanced level skills and knowledge that you would acquire in getting more involved in activism work and community organizing. Some of your action groups may even be here already, and we are actually doing this collectively with the PB proposal that everyone's going to be presenting and pitching their ideas on and writing proposals out. So this is like really advanced level skills. These things are really essential to organizing work. They take time, they take practice. So we're here to help you develop in these ways. And then number 4, the peer leaders have mentioned some skills related to this. Like one that sticks out in my head is like wanting to develop the skill of how to analyze policy. How is policy even created? What goes into it? And then other things like how do you analyze data? How do you collect data? How do you create surveys? Things like that. How do you influence policy? And then how do you present information to a target audience, which is always a little bit scary for me, and a skill that I'm trying to perfect myself. So I just wanted to put that out there because we're going to follow up. We're going to create these groups. These groups will give you a chance to hopefully meet new people outside of your action groups if you haven't had a chance to mingle with those folks yet, and really get to know where skills you want to develop in. And we'll help each other set SMART goals each month, and hold each other accountable into making sure that you are getting the opportunities to develop in those areas. That is pretty much what I have to share for that. And I'll probably need your help in this section, Sanda, but we really want you to look forward to some of the work that we have planned for you this spring. It will definitely reflect some of these key skills. Like, for example, the following session will be public speaking, advocacy, storytelling, which is a huge, crucial skill that you need to learn when you're doing social justice work and advocacy. We have the PB proposal coming up, and I'll let you talk about the forum, the candidate forum, and all of the other opportunities.
Yes, thank you, Mello. And just building on the instrument that Mello just introduced, that's really a way to ensure that you can sort of be in the driver's seat about what you're learning and how you're growing in YVote. You know, we have great conversations, you're building skills and knowledge, but sometimes like we're all doing so much, it's hard to know. And so this is a way to sort of like both be intentional about here are the skills I want to grow, and then also to be able to reflect back and see like where you started, where you are, and where you're heading, because you are activists and change makers for life. And then the accountability groups that Mello was talking about, you know, we love having different small groups, and there's also something nice about having continuity. And also we are so intentionally intersectional in sort of some of the ways that intersectional is, but just really seeing the intersection of issues. And so you're specializing in one, maybe that's criminal justice, maybe that's immigration justice, but all of these are informed by the others. So in your accountability group, you'll get to hear about what's happening in gender justice and what's happening in climate justice. So we're excited about that new framework. And that will start. So today is the last full activist forum of semester one. And then for the peer leaders, you have one more meeting at the end, I think it's January 26th, that will be on storytelling and public advocacy. And then we'll start semester two on February 9th, back together in this, but you know, using this matrix of leadership skills, civic skills, and in your accountability groups as well. Also, that means that in the next couple of weeks, you will get your stipends for the first semester, which is great. Peer leaders have already gotten theirs, and activists will do that. And just a reminder, that's based on participation, which is a composite of your attendance in meetings and your work outside with your peer leaders and with your groups. And one thing that this civic skills matrix will help is to be even more explicit about that, so that you can really sort of track your progress and both sort of like your skills and your stipends being connected to that. So in semester two, as Mello was previewing, we are going to be continuing to work on the things that we've been doing in terms of getting our peers and ourselves civically knowledgeable, having a sense of civic agency and civic efficacy. Some of the specific things we'll be doing that we've started in small degrees are learning more about ranked choice voting. Some of you have already participated in some training on that and to do peer workshops. This is the first time this is happening in New York. It's a trend that we hope is taking off more broadly across the country. And we're actually going to do some ranked choice voting ourselves a little bit later this afternoon to get a little preview. We are also actively involved in the municipal election, which means the mayoral election, the city council elections for 35 out of 51 seats, the public advocate election, the borough president's election, the district attorney's election. And so we really have a seat at the table working with some other organizations about doing a candidates roundtable in the end of February, which you'll be hearing more about, and then continuing to interact and use our scorecards. So taking the issue scorecards that we worked on this summer and this fall and using those again in reference to these new candidates, and also turning them into accountability scorecards. How are we making clear, you know, we elected you, you know, or we have the potential to elect you, and we can vote you in or vote you out. And as I know some of the small groups were talking about, the youth vote in Georgia was hugely influential. And we want to have the equivalent of that in New York. And so we're going to be working with you to develop how we do that. So, and then a lot will be based on these civic skills. So what you identify as being most important and creating some differentiation to ensure that you get those met. And then also the participatory budgeting proposal. So now we're going to be going into or shortly we'll be going into the participatory budgeting pitches. And, you know, we'll only have, well, we'll see how many we have going forward. But for those ideas that you develop, if you're invested in them, we want to make time and space to work on that this spring. But before we get into participatory budgeting, we wanted to talk a little bit about social media. So y'all have been doing great social media within your action groups. And that's something that we introduced maybe 2 months ago. And so we wanted to think a little bit about, you know, is that working well? Is that helping to advance your action groups work? That was our goal, both to sort of have content to be able to share with a broader group than YVote, but also to sort of accelerate your thinking and your work together by creating a weekly post. You know, at this point, we're sort of 2 months in and we want to step back and think about, is it working? How might it work better? Do we want to continue to do that work within our social action groups, or do we want to have a different strand of YVote that's sort of a creator's strand of people who are particularly interested in doing social media and who work on that sort of separate from the action group. So we're actually going to have a survey that will ask you about that. But we also wanted to share, because this is very bittersweet, that our amazing social media director and one of our facilitators, Yessie, is going to be moving on at the end of the semester. And wanted to have an opportunity to thank her for her incredible work over the past months and years in YVote broadly, and especially in our social media. Like Yessie will continue to be part of the beloved community and will, and Yessie, certainly you can speak to this, be a resource for everyone, as she is sort of like in her bones. But as she moves on, we will be structuring social media differently, and have some more of you stepping up to the plate, both within the social media work and within the environmental justice action group. And so there's actually going to be an application that will go to out to environmental justice to apply if you would like to sort of basically take on Yessie's role. So, we think about the building blocks in YVote, where there's different tiers of leadership. So the baseline is like being a YVote activist. And then there's being a peer leader. And then above that is being a junior facilitator. And that's the role that Kayla serves in the LGBTQ group, and it now will have people moving into in environmental justice. And then there's the senior facilitator role, which is what Chris-Anne and Mukaddis and Nushat and Maria are. And then we have Melody as our lead facilitator. So you can see that there's like various tiers so that you can continue to grow your skills and your work and your ability to work in different ways. And then beyond YVote, there are the supplemental opportunities to do workshops for other groups, to be part of panels. One, and I'll put it in the chat, a couple of you have signed up for an inauguration roundtable that Chalkbeat is doing, where you'll be interviewed by reporters from Chalkbeat, and that will then appear in the paper next week. We have maybe one more slot available, and we're excited that Sharona and Kellen are going to represent us on that panel. And these opportunities come up all the time. So one of the things that the Civic Skills Matrix will do is that you can identify, ooh, I want to move to the next level of learning. Please sign me up for different workshops. Think of me for different opportunities. We try to put those out to you in email, but we know sometimes it's hard to stay on track of your email. So we encourage you to take initiative and to come forward so that we can customize the opportunity for you. Yessie, anything you would like to add? Any of your sort of like lessons learned about social media or
speech.
I have a presentation for the social media stuff. I'm not
Okay.
So let's get into it. Thank y'all. I can address everything in the chat, but like let's do this. We're a little behind time. So YVote New York Instagram, looking forward. So where are we at right now? So right now we are at 975 followers. Our highest likes are 88 for one of our posts. I'm going to show you which post it is later. And then how many accounts are we reaching? We're reaching 1.3K, believe it or not, but we're not getting that amount of likes or comments. We are getting content interactions to 1K, which is pretty good, given like I think the stories are working really well. So yeah, so this is some of the graphs. I'm gonna just go over it. Top locations, New York, yay, we're meeting our audience in New York. Clap, clap, clap. But are we meeting the age we want to meet? Not so much, unfortunately, given that maybe adults like us a little more. But but as we can see, 18 to 24 is still around our audience, but we really want to target 13 and 17-year-olds, I believe. So that needs to progress a little more. I'm going to talk about a little bit how we can do that. And then 25 to 34-year-olds seem to be on our page a lot. Maybe it's our, I don't know what it is, but yes, this is what it's breaking down to. And then we have women, a lot of women on our page. So we have to think about how we're maybe changing the narrative or making sure that we're sort of getting men in here too, like we're always trying to at YVote. So this is very important. And again, the accounts reach, you can see in the side. Any questions on this page before I move on? Yay, nay? Can I get thumbs up? I want to see some interaction. See, this is me being interactive. Okay, let's go. So, what is working? Content with your face on it is working. They want to see you. Let me tell you, they don't want to see me. They don't want to see nobody else but you. Sometimes they want to see me. I'm lying. You see the little thing in the bottom, but they want to see Y voters. They want to see our organization. They want to see what our organization is doing through your lens. Also, content with carousel posts. If you don't know what carousel is, that means just the sliding post. That's the term for it for our social media director gurus or however you pronounce that. But it's also with minimal text and more graphics, given that some of our carousel posts do not get the attention they need. Shout out to racial justice. You see your little square right there on the top right second row. You got 75 likes. Shout out to y'all. And then we see a lot of YVote masks. We see a lot of YVote ads, like the ad I was a part of, and we see Julemi all over this. Shout out Julemi. We see Carla. We want to see Kiara. We see Kiara, and yeah, we see all of us on the second most liked post. So that means they want to see us. That was when we were announcing our summer program. So that was probably it. They were like, "Oh, we've been talking about it a lot," and we finally got to see them. And then content with urgent news, as you can see, that's our top liked post because we all wanted to know and what was happening, and we were able to be that resource to know that. So, any questions before I move on? Can I get some thumbs up if you understand this? Thank y'all. I'm scrolling through. Okay, we got the virtual thumbs up. So, what is not working? Content with bad quality. What does that mean? That means if it's a YouTube video and people don't like that it says YouTube on it, I guess they just want to see the video, unfortunately. So we have to fix that, I guess. And then content with too much information. So you see, unfortunately, environmental justice, the Amazon wildfires didn't work out for us because there was too much information. And that's okay. We learn from this and we grow from it. So, and then the standstill. So I forgot to mention over here, they like videos, they like carousels. But if it stands still, we most likely won't get a lot of attention because I don't know why. They just don't like it. Our audience, we have to fit our audience and they don't like this. So less information, more interactive. Yeah. Any questions? Do we understand that? Thumbs up. I'm not gonna ask for thumbs up. I'm just assume you're gonna give me a thumbs up if you for the next few slides. Okay, so what should we be shifting to? We should be shifting to targeting our audience, which is 13 and 17-year-olds. It's great to have all these allies, adults, but we want the youth to know what's going on. So what does that mean? We have to research our audience a little more, maybe get a TikTok account because TikTok is popping in 13 to 17-year-olds. Easier to read language. We want to make sure everybody understands what we're saying online. No language barrier. Create valuable content, consulting with one another if posts should go up or not. Taking time to do the content, proofreading, making sure our info is accurate. I want to emphasize this because sometimes we do get messages. Sandra could tell us too that some of our information is not accurate, and I have to go in there and repost or something. So I want to make sure things are.
Well, the good news is that means people are really reading it to know that it's not accurate, but let's impress them.
We do got our adult allies that are nitpicking our posts. So that's good. That's the good part of having adults on our page. And figuring out numerical goals. So if it's 2K by the end of the summer for followers or how many people we're interacting with, we want to make sure we're making numerical goals and meeting them. And yeah, so I think that's it. And I just show a little picture that I'm leaving and Creator Corps led by Cody, or am I wrong?
Yes, Cody is going to be helping to lead the social media charge, which we are thrilled about. So can we just do so I was in a conference earlier today and we had an amazing sign language interpreter. And I actually didn't fully realize that when we do this, it is like sort of clapping for, all audiences. So can we just have like a collective Thank you to Yessie for the amazing presentation that she just gave, for the amazing work that she's done, and for all her contributions to building a more just and inclusive and wonderful world. So, and as we mentioned, yes, Cody has graciously is stepping up, and we're hoping to put together a a team for Cody, a team of creators and people who are interested in sort of flexing your creative muscles. And so there are opportunities there, and we'll also follow up via email, and also feel free to contact us if you're interested in doing that. It's just a great opportunity to do what you might want to do, but do it for a social cause and to advance our mission, and to also increase your stipend. So thank you, Yessie. Welcome, Cody, and we'll continue to explore how we can optimize our social media. Okay, we are running a little bit late, so we are now going to toggle into the next steps with our participatory budgeting proposals. And just a quick reminder that there are 5 $20,000 grants that will be selected by youth voters age 11 to 24 across the city. And I think they'll have a couple weeks to vote starting in the beginning of February. And then whoever gets the most votes will have basically 3 months from March to June to expend that money. The project proposals, and this is new since we were together last month, they did a needs assessment, which y'all contributed to. And based on that, came up with the top 3 issues that are most important for youth in our city, which won't surprise any of you. It's youth mental health, it's preparation for the future, which they sort of describe as college and career. It can also be, I think, civic engagement. And then the third is frustration with issues and youth being left out of key conversations and decision-making. So it's a great match for YVote. And so we're now going to give you about 15 to 20 minutes in your action groups to go back to what you've been working on and to prepare to present out to your peers, because you'll have up to 3 minutes. You don't need to use all that time to pitch your peers and then to take questions and answers and commentary. And so we'll hear from all 6 of our groups, and then we'll engage in actually a ranked choice voting exercise. And we're going to use like a little bit of a rubric. Just want to quickly share this rubric with you. Let me find my screen share. And this is just to really help you think about an effective proposal. So when you apply for proposals, which you will probably do over the course of your academic and professional lives, often there is, here it is, you want to set criteria. And so judges will sort of like have something in their hand to know, is this a good proposal or is it not? So for us, there's some that are just like a checkbox, right? Do you effectively address one of the 3 core needs? Is it clear how your group will authentically engage youth in the planning and implementation of your project? Given that you are youth doing it, that one's pretty easy, but there may be people who are applying for this. There certainly will be, who are not young people. They're designing something for young people, but we are driven by your goals. Is it clear how the group will use budget funds, and is the budget compelling? So that's something you don't need to get into the nickels and dimes of your budget, but really thinking about what the flow of money is. Is it clear what community or communities you are addressing, and are they among the 25 high priority neighborhoods? How effective of a case do you make for whatever you are proposing? And then the last one is, how much does it motivate you, and to what degree do we think the project would motivate youth around the city to vote for it? Because it's not going to be any of us picking who gets this money. It is going to be everyone, every young person who votes from age 11 to 24. So we really have to think about how are we going to interest and excite them. And I will put the link to that rubric. I think it's in your agenda, and I'm also going to drop it into the chat. Any questions about this process before we go into our breakout groups?
I have a question.
Yes.
So are we presenting our pitch like in like a slideshow, or like is it just talking?
That is a great question, Claire. And I will say that is up to each group. So your social action, your action group social media for this week is to do your pitch via social media. Environmental Justice exhibited that beautifully yesterday. So you can quickly log on to YVote's Instagram and see what Environmental Justice did. I suspect they'll use that for their pitch today. If you have visuals, great to use them. If you don't, that's fine. I mean, maybe you can put something together in the next 15 minutes, but you can also just talk. So that's really group to group. Any other questions?
This isn't a question, but it's just a comment. So in the chat, I just put the order in which we will be presenting afterwards, just so that we can start prepping. So just get ready. It's basically in alphabetical order.
That's awesome. Thank you, Maria, for doing that. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, let us go into our groups for the next 17 minutes. Action groups are open.
Everyone. Again, I'm just going to post in the chat the order in which we will be presenting. So we won't waste too much time because I know we're running a little bit behind. But yes, so without further ado, does criminal justice want to go first?
Of course. We're always ready. Huh?
And I will just tell people, you can, if you want to look at my screen for when I will be the official timekeeper, and I'm going to, do not make fun of these. My cats got to them, so they have some holes, but you can see 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you, Sanda. Yes, so 3 minutes.
I'm ready when you are.
And then afterwards, I should mention that we're gonna have like no more than 3 voices to share any feedback or any comments, just again, so we can keep to the time. So yes, sorry, Anthony, the floor is all yours.
All right, thank you. And here is my part of the pitch, right? There has been a stigma with law enforcement. Officers, especially with the tragic events that happened, which is called George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Those people sadly, tragically died, and we will always cherish them. And that stigma also breeds a mistrust and even creates a fear for law enforcement because especially they have a gun. Taking this all in, there presents itself obvious issues that need to be changed because this really takes a toll on youth mental health. We are scared to be confronted by an officer because we see them as enemies and not our protectors. The law enforcement narrative needs to be different. Implementing police training will be our step to a more interconnected community in Mount Haven with the police. And we hope in doing so, we can build a trust.
Okay, here's my part of the pitch. Many people have seen the negative effects of police in schools. It is very true that police in the communities they serve in don't always see eye to eye. Many students/youth have a feeling of distrust when the topic of law enforcement is brought up. Police in their communities need to have a strong bond and be on the same page, so then there can be more of an understanding between them. There are many ways police in their communities, especially the youth in disenfranchised places such as Mott Haven, can connect and build more trust between each other. Building a better connection between law enforcement and youth and their communities can improve relationships between the community and police and can bring about more opportunities for the community.
Well, it is evident that police training is very important. It is not enough. Police officers must also be held accountable for what they do during their job. We will make police misconduct public, as there have been instances where it has been kept a secret, and it's very costly to have police officers wear cameras. So therefore, we will have students or teachers report misconduct or abuse of power and have this investigated.
And lastly, we're going to expand counseling services to assist students in dealing with issues that they may be facing at home or academic issues to, equip them with the tools they need both in and outside of school, which is definitely going to help improve their futures and, actually let them deal with these things properly. And the first step is going to be reforming the police training and teaching them how to foster comfortable relationships between students and the police. And we'll also be working with students in Mott Haven high schools to see what community building initiatives they would like to see be implemented in their communities so we can best address their needs. And our ultimate goal is to set up this infrastructure to continue fostering these healthy relationships between local police and schools in the Mont Haven area for years to come.
Perfect. We are at time and you got it.
Woo! Thank you so much for going first and giving us that great pitch. Any questions or feedback for the criminal justice group? Feel free to popcorn style.
I really liked the pitch because they kind of connected it back to students like mental health and their well-being, and also like a lot of social issues in criminal justice, especially what's been going on in current events. So they connected that, and just for the future, I think that I would really like some important presentation, maybe like some slides or something, so that we could visualize it.
Some visuals. Thank you for that feedback. Anyone else? We can take maybe one or two more voices. Okay, I think the consensus there is visual representation matters. All right, well, thank you so much for going first again. Do we have climate ready for us?
Climate. Yeah.
I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So our presentation and our proposal is called Green Space. And the reason why we are proposing this is we are proposing that we build roof gardens in Brooklyn Community Board 16, which is also known as Brownsville, because this community has a high youth index, which basically means that it has a high rate of unemployment and teen pregnancy. And we wish to assuage these indicators through the use of roof gardens. Next, I'll pass it on to Mia for more information.
Thank you, Kakeli. So our purpose is to create a tight bond between students and the environment to raise awareness of environmental friendliness. Doing this, not only does it provide a platform to raise awareness, but it also gives students the opportunity to become innovative change makers to create solutions towards the climate justice situation. And it also improves student mental health during COVID and beyond by keeping them interacted with daily issues. So now I'm going to pass it over to Erica.
Yeah, thank you. Now our timeline goes with in March. We're going to choose a high school within the Brooklyn Community Board, 16 in Brownsville, through a selection process by evaluating needs. So I'm going to pass it to Michelle.
So it seems like Michelle's having some technical difficulties. So in April, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start implementing the plans for the roof gardens, and we're gonna start.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi came back on. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry. This keeps on happening. My phone keeps glitching. Anyway, for April, we hold on to implement the roof garden plans and construction with purchasing materials. Meaning we're just basically going to buy the materials and do whatever we can to help the economy as well as our society. So that way everything would be in store much better. Thank you. Jeez. I would like to move on to Natalie.
After we implement the plans during May, we're going to be in construction for a certain amount of time. And I'll pass it on to Muslimat.
By June 30th, all the materials we need should be purchased and the project should have been finished and the green space should have been completely done by then.
Research shows that just 15 minutes a day outdoors and in nature helps improve stress levels. In an inner city community such as Brownsville, it is important to allow students to have access to these other key factors, as well as making sure that our project can be replicated to other schools in this district so that we are able to reach everyone.
Once again, perfect timing.
Perfect timing. So proud. Great job. Thank you so much for presenting. Do we have any questions or feedback for climate?
I'd like to go first. To start, I like the way you planned it out with the months and how like it would be very, or it would be very, it is, why am I saying be? It is organized in the way that like it really, for the first time viewing it, you have a good sense of what's to come, and you get a sense of, oh well, I'm excited for this. And second, I like how you connected that we're doing this to make our world greener, but also because of that, we're also relieving our own stress, like in a way that we're helping the world and in which we are helping ourselves. And that was good. And that's it. Overall, it was wonderful.
Yeah, like just following up, Anthony, really good presentation. I loved how organized it was. My only question is, since Brownsville, like you guys mentioned, it has a high rate of things like, teen pregnancy and teen idleness. So that's like not getting involved in the community. What ensures that teens in Brownsville will actually want to, help out with this initiative?
That's a great question. I could answer this. So it's because of like COVID and we know about economic hardship, we do want to put a portion of our program towards stipends, kind of how like we are doing now in YVote, so that it makes sure that like students will be able to be taken care of, especially in a community that's really been hard hit by COVID, like during this time, to make sure that students are able to like not only like have like their mental health needs like taken care of, but also like be in a program that allows a source of money, which means that they can go on to like, even in like college, maybe go on and apply the skills that like they've learned with us onwards, which would just be an immense help to like the world in general.
Thank you.
And we are at
Any-
time.
Thank you. Great. So to move us right along, do we have gender ready for us?
Yes. All right. Bethany, you think you can share the Canva?
Okay, you start and I'll jump in whenever you need me, but I'll share it right now. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. So, all right. So, as we all know, there are many young teens in New York who are severely undereducated on significant concepts that help mold and shape their future. While this is sadly the case, YVote's Gender Justice Focus Group has come up with a summer enrichment program entitled Forever You and I. This program will provide a safe space for boys and girls to become more educated on the important gender justice figures, both historical and contemporary, and encourage and empower them through the use of motivational webinars and engaging activities and projects to truly mold future leaders in the community. So we've decided our focal neighborhoods would be Queens Community Board 12, which is Jamaica and St. Albans, and Queens Community Board 4, which is Elmhurst and Corona. Bethany, if you could scroll down.
You want me to scroll down on the Canva or you want me to bring up the participatory budget, like our little writing?
On the Canva.
Okay, hold on. Zoom share, Canva.
Bethany, you can talk about this part if you want.
Okay, so our mission statement is educate, encourage, and empower, which is the focal point of this whole or this program, which is Forever You and I. And why Forever You and I is to educate young civilians on the history of gender equality and prominent historical and contemporary figures that fought for gender-related rights, along with other
we didn't finish that part, but also to encourage and empower young people through projects and motivational webinars and engaging projects. And that leads us into like how we'd use our budget. And the budget would be used to provide participants with a stipend, as well as to hire guest speakers for webinars that will provide participants with educational resources that would help them better their futures and become better leaders.
Are we done?
Yeah, we're basically done.
That's perfect. You also hit the timing exactly. I forgot to give you the 30-second, but you just hit it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Woo! We're so on time. I love it. Yes, any questions or feedback for our gender justice group?
I have a comment. I really like the mission statement. It was very like concise. Like it wasn't like rambling on. Like that's really important. Like if like one of the groups want to get like the funding, you have to be very direct. So I really like the mission statement. And the presentation was very organized as well. So it was very easy to read.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. To move us, any other comments or questions, please put it in the chat. We're going to move right along because we are running super behind, although everyone is right on time. So totally not your fault. Yeah, totally not on you. So LGBTQ.
Yeah, okay. So when you were in middle school, how often did you hear a slur thrown around or the words, "that's so gay"? We are the Proud Pride Project, and we're hoping to change that environment. We're planning an educational program for 5 to 6 middle schools where one student and one teacher that are either part of the LGBTQ plus community or allies get up and talk to their school community about their experiences in that middle school and share the information that we're going to give them. That this information will be centered around LGBTQ plus youth mental health and our history. And then at the end of the presentations, the entire group that they're talking to will participate in a trivia about what they've learned to keep the middle schoolers excited, and they'll be handed out goodie bags containing pencils and pens and other middle school things. And I'll pass it to Raina now to talk about why we're doing this.
So we decided to target middle schoolers in specific because we thought that elementary school students were too young and that they would understand, but not to the full extent or capacity that this program would have. And we thought that middle school was the perfect age because they're highly influenced and their minds and their opinions are still being shaped. And if they hear such negative things or negative connotations in middle school, those will be carried with them throughout high school or when they're older. So we wanted to teach them at a younger age when they're still very influenceable.
Okay, now I'm going to tell you the proposed timeline. We were thinking May 24th through June 30th because Pride Month. Granted, the schools are in person. So each person who facilitates will have a $1,500 stipend. $300 will be spent on pins. So our pins are going to say Proud and Allies, and we're going to give each student both a Proud and Allies sticker. And $3,000 is going to be spent on pamphlets, and $1,500 on water bottles, $1,000 on pens and pencils, and $1,500 on cameos, which will be of celebrities endorsing our thing.
That's pretty much it. That's kind of all we had. It's just supposed to be, a time for middle schoolers who are coming into themselves to learn about what it means to be LGBTQ plus, and for us to support them and to know that they're supported in their own community.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Woo. That was great. Thank you. Any questions or feedback for this group?
I was gonna say, oh sorry. I was gonna say the cameo part was very smart. You can get affordable endorsements from celebrities, so people do pay attention to what you're saying.
I was gonna say the same thing.
I really liked how it started out like really like got like, well, obviously I'm paying attention to everyone's, but like it like got my attention even more, like if that makes sense. And I really liked how like yeah, they have like a plan on how to like keep students like in this project, and I liked like how they introduced themselves. They were like, we're this and that, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Keep adding some of your notes and your questions in the chat. Oh, Kiera, do you want to?
Yeah. I was gonna say how I like how they started in middle school because that's when the youth are trying to find themselves, and the reason that they pick middle school is reasonable on why they pick the middle schoolers. So honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for raising that for sure. Thank you. And that leads us into our next group, immigration. Are you ready for us?
Yeah, I'll be screen sharing. So give me 1 second.
Okay, so hi guys, we're the Immigration Action Group, and this is what we decided to do. Can you go? Okay, thank you. So we know that in our day and age, we're all learning home from school, and because of factors such as like internet connections or just like language barriers, children aren't able to receive the full extent of an education they can receive online. So because of that, we decided to I'll pass it on to who's supposed to be presenting next.
The mission of the Zoom homework help or all-star program is to reach middle school and elementary school kids who are in a low income and who face hardships and have been dealing with language barriers or any type of barriers in their school timeline during the COVID pandemic. We and help them out with their homework. The procedure of this is the program will take place after schools. The high schoolers will be eligible to help middle and elementary school kids. This government, it should be government subsidized because it will reach to low income neighborhoods, and also everyone. It can help everyone. We're hiring high schoolers who are showing excellence in their academic career throughout the 4 years in high school and have been taking rigorous courses. And this program should not be specific for a particular school. It should be all throughout New York City schools because it will impact everyone and it will help reach out people, not just in one particular school, but everywhere in New York City.
So along with our Zoom homework help, we also have our community food and resource distribution.
Some issues are because not just because of COVID, but some low income students may face some hardships. They might not have food in their house, and stuff like that.
And essentially, the mission is that a lot of families, especially low income families, may not be able to afford food and resources. And specifically with the pandemic, a lot of people relied on schools to provide food to their kids. So that's essentially the mission of our program.
And just to end it all, we have a general outline of where the funding will go. For the first solution would be the Zoom homework help me. We will provide the stipend for the tutors, secure devices and internet for the students, and overseeing supervisors who would just take care of like who needs tutoring, who would tutor whom. And moving on to food distribution, there will also be stipend for student volunteers. Student volunteers will also gain community service hours, but also be able to truly help their community by giving out food and food and resource funding, as well as stipends for overseeing supervisors.
Thank you. that is time. Thank you so much for presenting. That was beautiful. Any feedback or questions?
Yes, I have some comment to make. I think it's very smart to target elementary and middle school students because I feel like they're like, especially elementary school students, they're one of the most affected. Because I watched like a documentary, and it seems like a lot of kids in the first grade are still at like kindergarten level, like reading level, like they're really struggling from this pandemic. So I think that's just a very nice idea.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Any last minute? Keep putting them in the chat, of course. Oh, Yulemi, you want to share?
Oh yeah, I just want to make a comment. Like I like how it goes like beyond like immigration, and it's very like considerate of like what's going on, and just considerate of like a lot of things that happen in general.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And last but not least, we have racial justice. Are you ready for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my
Hi.
screen. Okay, give me a second. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we are planning to opening job opportunities for the youth of, yeah, our, our we propose to put more funding into paid youth opportunities. A proposal is that we plan to expand our youth employment programs into better and full-time programs for the youth and in communities affected by the economic crisis. By expanding these programs into full year, we can introduce the youth to professional opportunities and environments. We can introduce programs such as resume building, community service, and interview preparation, and these programs can help engage and prepare students for life after school and help them and their families if they are affected by the economic crisis caused by COVID-19. And our purpose is to allow youth people to be exposed to paid opportunities that will be able to help them provide for their families and will help them grow their resume and expand for experiences in the future. I'm going to pass it on to Manaja.
So we hope that by March that we'll have the funding and votes that are needed and we can start the process. In April, we'd like to have the organizations that we will collaborate with prepared and ready to select students. The goal is to give a bit of professional jobs, like maybe collab with hospitals, firms, things that will interest people for careers. And then for May, we hope to open applications and choose students who meet the requirements based on income. So there are youth organizations like SYEP, but those are lottery. So it kind of tends to be pretty fair, but very random. And then June, we will have students matched to jobs and they will be able to start their training for the summer. Since it is government funded, these organizations won't really face any losses and it's basically free help for them. And yeah.
So the impact of this would be that the youth programs will benefit our communities because if the youth are able to work, the youth will be able to stay out of trouble by learning professionalism and becoming responsible young adults. And especially in this worldwide pandemic, which means that families are having struggle financially with money, and this will having teens have jobs will have leverage on parents and less stress for being the only ones providing the money. And between SYEP and All Stars Project would have opportunities for the youth because it's giving the youth a chance to learn responsibility, work ethic, and professionalism when they get started with working. And we will have access and we will access impact of the number of SYEP participants increase by increase of 35%, and we'll access impact of numbers of jobs in general increases by 45%, and will access impact of numbers of jobs available by 50%.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Any questions or comments, feedback for racial justice? No? Okay. If you do, please put them in the chat. While we're doing that, I'm also going to chat in our ranked choice voting link. I know that Sanda is going to share her screen so that we can actually see it in live time. So please vote as we make a decision and kind of overview rather the different proposals that were made today, or pitches rather.
So here's
And
what
then-
you could be seeing. And one of the nice things about ranked choice voting, if you're like me, the notion of if you just had to vote for one of these, it would be unbelievably painful. But this way you can rank order them. So you put your top choice and then you can put, all the rest. And we'll see how things come out. So the sooner we do it, the sooner we can finish and get you to dinner, homework, the rest of your evenings. Is everyone clear on how to do it?
Yes, the cat is voting as well.
I know. The cat is voting for dinner. He very much wants dinner right now. I'm going to show our, oops. Just toggle to the results as they're coming in. 22 votes so far. And there are how many of us? Let's see.
55.
Okay. Let's get our voter rate up. And see, isn't this so cool? You can sort of see how things are moving. Now, by the way, the reason you're seeing zeros next to these other four are not that these four have not gotten votes. They have, but if you're not over 50%, it sort of puts you into the other category. And I'll show you when we finish. So this is actually a little misleading what you're seeing. I just wanted to give us a little sneak preview. 35. Come on, team. Let's get it up. Oh, I know the perfect song that we should be playing for the last.
Maybe we can do like a countdown too.
We're up to 48 votes. 49 votes. Okay, so we'll give 52 votes. We'll give 10 more seconds for our last 1 or 2 votes to come in. And you might recognize that song playing in the background was Yellow Pains, My Vote Don't Count, but your vote does count. So that was irony. Okay. Recount, stop the count. Okay, I'm going to show it. No, this is transparent. We are not, you don't need to stop the steal. This is fully legitimate. Okay, let's see. Okay. We've got, wait, how do we have 58 votes? Do we have 58 people here? Oh no, we may have a little bit of voter fraud. We're gonna go with it and honor policy. So with 57% of the vote, we have climate justice and 43 immigration justice. Let me show it this. And so now you can see, sorry, actually that okay, this is what the full thing is. So you can sort of see what the breakdown is. And the reason why you saw what you saw first is that it reallocates the votes at the bottom because it's not going to have enough to win. And so whoever voted, let's say you voted for LGBTQ, your second choice then goes in. It's a little more complicated than that. But so in round one, it says climate justice is leading, but no choice has over 50% of the votes. So those with the fewer votes get eliminated. And so then we go to round two, and then you see how we are there. So climate justice still leading, but not over 50% of the votes. So then we go to round three. We're still there. So this means, so the important thing to know is that we were really allocated, and sorry that that first thing showed because it made it look like it was just two, but the way we got to that is by going through 5 rounds, which is actually a lot of rounds. So it just goes to show how strong all of the proposals were, that even when we got to 4th round, we still didn't have anyone with over 50% of the votes. So then we eliminated another, and that's where we got to where we got to.
Gang, gang, gang. Good job, environmental justice.
Any questions, anyone? Thoughts, comments?
You weren't supposed to vote for your own group, right?
We didn't clarify that, honestly. So I assume that people did vote for their own groups. And in a real election, you've probably seen, I mean, Joe Biden voted for himself. Donald Trump probably voted for himself many times. So that's where we are. Okay, we want to commend you on your work and also to sort of say that we are going to look to find ways to support all of you in doing your proposals. So we're going to revisit this. Would love, I know we are over time, so we're just going to put this here, but please, please, please click and fill out the first semester survey. Peer leaders, you have already filled this out, so you do not need to. It is the same survey that you filled out at the end of December. But for activists, please fill this out. Not only does it have it has reflections on first semester, sort of your hopes and goals for semester 2, and it also has information about how you want to receive your stipend. So as a reminder, activist stipend is $75 for the first semester. That's prorated, which means like reduced for participation if you missed meetings or missed doing work. And the default is to get an online gift card. If that doesn't work for you, you can signify in that survey that you would like to get it via PayPal. Make sure to put your PayPal tag so that you get that money, or check, which takes longer, but is an option. Okay, everyone, sorry that we ran out of time for our affirmations. Can we also just have another jazz hand for Yessie, both for leading this incredible environmental justice group and for the incredible social media. Thank you, everyone. We will be in touch via fingers and keep you posted. For environmental justice, we will be in touch about doing the next steps to get the proposal finalized and into the city for citywide voting.
Bye.
Bye. Good night, all.